Colonel Hadfield, I'm handing the controls over to you. Je vous donne les commandes, Colonel Hadfield. Merci d'être là. Thank you so much for being here today.
Donc, merci, Madame le juge sénateur Tremblay. C'était absolument un honneur d'être ici avec tous. Mais spécifiquement, bienvenue et félicitations pour votre citoyenneté nouvellement acquise en tant que Canadien-Canadienne. Vous saviez que vous suivez maintenant l'esprit et peut-être les traces aussi de millions de personnes qui sont arrivées sur ces côtés canadiens. Les premières traces de nos premiers peuples, il y a, qui sait, peut-être 8 000 des années déjà, après que l'ère glaciaire qui soit retraite de la Terre. Imaginez ce qu'ils ont vu pour la première fois. La vaste promesse, la capacité énorme et l'abondance sauvage. And now to think, to be able to look at our country right from the very most northern tip, the little community that is the northernmost permanently inhabited community in the world, in Alert, just 800 kilometers from the pole, right to the southernmost tip of Canada, which is, it's an island in Lake Erie, Middle Island, which is at the same latitude as Sardinia and Istanbul and Beijing and Northern California, or in the Southern Hemisphere, the same latitude as Rio Negro in Argentina or Tasmania. That span north to south, and from the west, all the way from our westernmost tip at Boundary Peak in the Yukon, 5,400 kilometers, I checked, from there to Cape Spear, right on the easternmost point in Newfoundland, where Canada and Canadians first see the sunrise every day. Ma famille est venue ici il y a 110 ans déjà. Mon arrière-grand-mère, Anne Charlton, le nom de Nana, et mon arrière-grand-père, Austin John Hadfield. And I'm named for him. My name is Chris Austin Hadfield. Mais ils sont arrivés inspirés par la promesse d'une nouvelle terre, d'un nouveau pays et de nouvelles opportunités. And when my family first came to Canada, they settled not too far from where many of you are, just in Saskatchewan at that time, in the town of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And I have lived in Alberta also, in not too far. One of my kids was born, in fact, just up and to the right from Edmonton in the town of Cold Lake, Alberta. But what I find intriguing now, when we look at Canada, which is just having its 154th birthday here coming up shortly, I mean, my folks arrived 110 years ago. Canada is not much older than that personal experience. And yet, over 5 million new Canadians have arrived since the year 2000, just in this century alone. And if we do the count right now, 1 out of every 4 Canadians, 1/4 of all Canadians are born somewhere besides this country, people who have made a choice to come and become Canadian. And that's exactly the same as when my family first came here 110 years ago. But each has arrived. Chacun est venu dans un pays béni par la géographie et honoré par son peuple. Chacun travaille dur pour donner à chaque Canadien, Canadienne le droit de réaliser pleinement ses rêves. And I am one of those lucky dreamers who has realized his dreams. I look through my Canadian passport, and it is full of so many little stamps. I've traveled to, I think, 100 countries. I've circled the earth on board spaceships 2,650 times. And I've lived and worked abroad in several different countries. And yet, my wife and I so eagerly returned home to the land that we loved. And during those travels, I got to see Canada like no one before. Because as was mentioned by the judge in the introduction, I did Canada's first spacewalks. And if you look on the back of the $5 bill, the blue $5 bill that perhaps you have in your wallet or your purse, that's commemorating that great Canadian technological capability to be able to start to explore the rest of the universe in person. But at the end of my first spacewalk, as we were coming up across the United States, and it says my internet is unstable, but hopefully you can hear and see me okay. I was outside of the spaceship, holding on with one hand to the space shuttle. And the Canadians that were down in mission control, as we crossed the coast of Canada, the southern border, and headed up over the eastern provinces, they played Notre Hymne National. They played the Canadian national anthem. And it was being sung by Roger Doucette, who for many years sang the Canadian national anthem inside the hockey arena, at the time the Forum in Montreal, in a broad, proud Canadian voice. And I find it's extra appropriate here with Edmonton and Winnipeg, I think, are kicking off the Stanley Cup playoffs here on Wednesday, and Toronto, my home team, and Montreal kicking off on Thursday. But when I was outside that ship, floating weightless in space, I could see just with my naked blue eyes the incredible vastness of this place, this country of ours. And not just the vastness in geography, but the vastness of time and of future promise. And the immense work that has been done by our forebears, and what they have built and handed to each of us as Canadians. The necessity now, as the minister was saying, for each of us to take hold of that individual privilege and obligation of citizenship to make this country better. It's a responsibility to give our children a healthy and vibrant and sustainable economy and country. And I can only imagine what you, as the newest Canadians in our entire country, will see during your lifetimes. And it just makes me smile. I see some children that are on this call as well. It just makes me smile to think of the Canada that your children and your grandchildren will love and know and help to build.